Well, hey there, how are you? So, what's on my mind today? What's on my mind today is books. So I was just watching a video from my friend Nat Lopez. You can check out his channel in the description below. Among other things, Nat is quite the artist. He is a painter, and important to the subject, he's a writer. Nat participates in an event every year called NaNoWriMo, which I believe stands for National November Writing Month. But at any event, Nat got me thinking about the times in my life when I have sat down in front of a keyboard and had these little bursts of creativity, and I've done some writing. Never written anything complete. There's chunks of stories all over the place. I've lost half of them. I've tried to rewrite and recreate some of them, but once in a while I find myself in that little bit of a creative spurt. My train of thought around that brought me to the idea of what books have influenced me in my life. So I thought I'd start the conversation by talking about the 3 books that were most influential to me in my life. Those books that had an impact on how I think about literature, reading and writing, and about storytelling in general. I can't think of a better place to do it than a bookstore. I am at Small World Books in Rochester, New York, and this is just an amazing used bookstore. It's amazing what you will find when you just stop and look at just the decades and years of literature that's collected here. Small World Books has done a great job curating a collection of everything you can think of. I was in, of course, the fiction section over there, but I'm seeing philosophy, art, children's books, history, Bible reference. Places like this are really worth checking out, and I came here because when we talk about 3 books that influenced me in my life, I found 2 of them here. Not surprising. Don't own either of these currently. Well, I do now because I just bought them. But I want to talk a little bit about both these books. First book on this list was introduced to me in the 4th grade. I remember Mrs. Ritz was my teacher just down the street at St. Stanislaus School. She read to the class Madeline L. Ingles, A Wrinkle in Time. It was my first introduction to the idea of science fiction, and it really opened up my mind to possibilities outside of the books from classic authors like Mark Twain and some of the standard American literature that you learn as a child. Science fiction, to me, was a new world, new worlds that I could explore and let my imagination run free. Madeline L. Ingles crafted an amazing story about a young girl, Meg, her brother Charles Wallace, how they go on this interdimensional adventure to rescue their father. For a 4th grader, to have our teacher read this to us in the middle of class really set me off on a love of reading and a love of literature in general. Second book I want to talk about, to be honest with you, kind of cheating because it's not really 1 book. It's actually 7. Been a fan of Stephen King for a long time. Read pretty much every Stephen King book there is. As a young adult, I stumbled across Stephen King's book, The Gunslinger, and it was okay. It didn't change my worldview. It didn't knock down any doors of imagination for me. But it was an interesting story that he was setting up. So when I got to the second book in a 7-book series, The Drawing of the Three, and this ultimately becomes The Dark Tower. The Dark Tower represents a huge, huge influence on me in terms of, again, love of literature, love of science fiction, the possibility of different worlds and new worlds. This is just, to me, like a magnum opus. I used to actually own a copy of this right here, the 7th book, The Dark Tower, and I'm ashamed to say that I lost it years and years ago. Now it's mine again. But the idea that you take this weird sort of science fiction spaghetti western with this odd cowboy Clint Eastwood looking dude, and you set him into this desert and don't quite understand what's going on. He's chasing a wizard. None of it really makes sense, but as you go through the book series and you learn his history and you see this world, this multiple worlds, how one world affects another, really just blew my mind when I got down to this final book, The Dark Tower itself, and realize how it's all connected, and this idea of multiple universes and anything can happen and you're jumping from world to world. You start to see how all of these worlds can connect to each other, and you've got other books now that reference events and people from these books. Stephen King, to me, wrote this just penultimate piece of literature, and I'm absolutely thrilled. It had a huge influence on me. So as I said, I found 2 of the 3 influential books right here at Small World Books in Rochester. But to talk to you about the third one, I actually got to head back home because I own number 3 in this list. But once again, I just want to say thank you so much to Small World Books for helping me with this today. And seriously, if you're in Rochester, it's on North Street, right outside of downtown. Gotta stop by and check them out. You guys take care. Have a great rest of your day. All right. Hello again. I'm home, and I'm ready to talk to you about the third book that was hugely influential on me growing up. Once again, this is not just one book, but it's actually a collection brought together into one big book known as a graphic novel. There's a little bit of a story behind this one too, so let me grab it and I'll show you. When I was about 11 years old, my elementary school was located right across the street from a huge public library in the city, and I went to that library almost every single day. One time I was in there, they had gotten their hands on a soft cover of a graphic novel compilation that, to be quite honest, I don't think they realized what they were putting out in the young adult fiction section. In fact, it was the graphic novel, The Watchmen. Now, I've been a fan of comic books my entire life. This, on the other hand, was completely new and different. The side note story is that, as a matter of fact, I never did return that graphic novel to the library. I never gave it back. I'm really ashamed and sad to say that I lost it years and years later. But last year, my son, the big man who you've seen on this channel a lot, got this for me as a present. And I swear to you, he made his old man cry. And even pulling this book off the shelf now, I get a little bit emotional because of how insanely important this book was to my concept of comic books and character-driven stories. And the whole idea is that it takes place in an alternate world, an alternate 1985, where Richard Nixon never left office, where America is just at rock bottom. What you have is a world where heroes were running around all through history. This is the story of what happens to these people later in life when they're old, when they're broken, when they're retired, when they just can't get out of the game. There are a lot of really deep, dark themes in this, but it's truly a test of the human condition. It shows just how fallible people are, especially those who may have had power. The overriding theme of this book is, who watches the Watchmen? It made me rethink the idea of protagonists and antagonists. It made me stop and consider that there really is a duality in people, and that the best of us can sometimes be at our worst. Immensely important book to me, early in my life and even through to today. So there you have it, my friends. These are the 3 books that were hugely influential to me. A Wrinkle in Time, Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, and the graphic novel The Watchmen. And now, of course, I throw it to you. What do you read? What have you read? What books have been the most influential to you in your life? Put it in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing what you like to read. I highly recommend, if you haven't read these 3 books, put them on your list. If you have kids, they definitely need to read this one. If you thought I did a good job in the video, I invite you to subscribe and come along for more of these conversations. Of course, hit the like button, and if you know any booktubers out there, maybe share this video with them, and I'd like their feedback too. For now, I think I will get myself a good strong cup of coffee, kick back and do a little bit of reading. As always, my friends, thanks so much for watching. See you on the road.